Good afternoon, students. I am Geeta Gangadharan, Associate Professor of English, Maharani's Arts College for Women, Mysore. Today we will discuss one of Thomas Hardy's poems, The Darkling Thrush. The Darkling Thrush is written by Thomas Hardy, the great English novelist and poet. It is prescribed for the third year BA Optional English students of the University of Mysore. Hardy lived during the Victorian period. Some of Hardy's famous novels are Tess of the D'Urbervilles, Far from the Madding Crowd, The Return of the Native, The Mayor of Casterbridge, Jude the Obscure, etc. Now, let me read out the poem for you. The Darkling Thrush. I leaned upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey, and winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. The tangled vine stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. The land's sharp features seemed to be the century's corpse outlined, his crypt the cloudy canopy, the wind his death lament. The ancient pulse of German birth was shrunken, hard and dry, and every spirit upon the earth seemed fervorless as I. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead, in a full-hearted even song of joy illimited. An aged thrush, frail, gaunt and small, in blast beruffled plume, had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom. So little cause for carolings of such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things afar or nigh around, that I could think there trembled through his happy good-night air some blessed hope whereof he knew and I was unaware. Now let us try to understand the poem. If you follow the lines carefully, you notice that the poem is an interplay between hope and despair. The first stanza begins in complete despair, and the third stanza concludes with unlimited joy and a blessed hope that the speaker is unaware of. The poem, The Darkling Thrush, was written on the last day of 1899. That is to say, the poem was written at the end of the 19th century. The poem reflects on the decay of the Western civilization at the end of the 19th century. The decay of the civilization is brought out very effectively through the all-pervading desolation in the surroundings. Symbolically, the poem mourns over the death of an era, centuries' corpse outleaned. The poem begins with the speaker leaning upon a gate, a coppice gate, and the gate opens into the woods. The frost is spectre grey. The frost is as grey as the ghost. The presence of frost suggests that it is winter season. The entire surroundings is desolate. The color grey brings into our minds associations of death and desolation. The dusk or the sunsetting time is made to look even more desolate by the winter's dregs. The winter's dregs is perhaps a reference to the fallen snow or maybe the fog, etc. The whole thing adds to the airiness of the landscape. The landscape that is already looking very desolate, dull, etc. becomes even more airy with the addition of this association. The tangled vine stems or the creepers reaching up to the sky resembles the strings of broken lyres. Strings of a broken lyre. A lyre is a stringed musical instrument. The strings of a broken lyre is obviously a reference to the disharmony or some kind of an aberration that is prevalent in the society. All human beings in the vicinity have taken shelter in their homes and cuddled up near the cozy household fires, emphasizing the fact that the speaker was standing out alone in this gloom-filled ambience. On the whole, the landscape presents a picture of complete bleakness. The frost being spectre grey is indicative of the gloom and darkness that engulfed the world during the 19th century. With the advent of industrialization, man turned into a mere machine. There is no scope for any kind of hope or revival. Hopelessness or despair seem to be the key words in understanding the landscape portrayed by Thomas Hardy. The second stanza of the poem compares the sharp features of the land with those of a corpse. The corpse of the century, that is, the century's corpse outlined. The poet imagines that the corpse of the 19th century is standing up erect and leaning forward. The cloudy sky is the burial ground of the century. His crypt, the cloudy canopy. And the wind is the death lament of the century. In other words, the wind is like a dirge or a mournful song sung on the death of the century. The seeds, which are the carriers of life, ancient pulse of germ and birth, have shrunken and become dry. So the seeds have shrunken and become dry. Thus there is nothing life-giving or energizing about the surroundings. The speaker reiterates that every spirit on earth, including himself, is fervorless, lacking in spirit. In this mood of absolute dejection, suddenly the speaker hears the song of an aged thrush overhead. The bird is frail, gaunt and small. The feathers of the bird are all ruffled by the wind. Nevertheless, the bird's song is of joy illimited. In other words, in this ambience of gloom, the bird sings a song of joy unlimited. The speaker can hardly find any earthly reason for such ecstatic carolings, either nearby or far off. Carolings may be a reference to Christmas carols. The speaker finds some hope in the bird's song, of which he is unaware. There seems to be some blessed hope that the bird is aware of, but he is not. Hence, such an ecstasy. Thus, the poem concludes on a positive note, raising some hope though all along it has been fervorless. I hope you have paid attention to the shift in mood from the first stanza to the third stanza. Perhaps a revival of religious faith is suggested here as an antidote to anarchy and anarchy, chaos and restlessness. Perhaps the bird is singing with immeasurable joy because it is not burdened by greed that characterizes man. There is enough for survival, but not enough for the ever-increasing greed of man. Therefore, contentment itself may be the content of the bird's song, though not explicitly stated. One more interpretation of hope could be that the indomitable spirit of man can survive any kind of challenge. Maybe, like the phoenix, hope is reborn from the ashes of despair, hope being the very essence of life. Dear students, I hope you have followed the poem. Please read and reread the poem. I am sure you will be able to make sense out of it, and pay attention to words which you are not familiar with and look up for their word meanings. Thank you.